Mission Impossible 3 is the third film in the Mission Impossible franchise. This one came out in 2006 and is now directed by J.J. Abrams, who you'll know is directing films like Super 8, the Star Trek 2009 reboot, Star Trek Into Darkness, and of course, the new little-known film Star Wars The Force Awakens. Yeah, the guy's doing pretty well for himself, but this film stars Tom Cruise, of course, as Ethan Hunt, Michelle Monaghan as Ethan Hunt's wife, Ving Rhames and Philip Seymour Hoffman as the villain. Of the first three Mission Impossible movies, I need to rewatch Ghost Protocol to really get an opinion on them all, but of the first three Mission Impossible movies, this one is, in my mind, the best. The main reason this film is so good is because of Philip Seymour Hoffman. He drives it because he is such an effective villain. That's actually really sad watching this film, realising that, oh, we don't have any more of him. Grrr. I mean, if a Mission Impossible film can actually show how talented that man is and to such a great extent, imagine the work he's done elsewhere. But the film opens with a very effective and tense scene where Tom Cruise is actually tied to a chair and so is his wife, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, you need to tell me where that rabbit's foot is, which I'll get to in a minute. I'm going to count to 10, tell me where it is or I'm going to shoot your wife. And he does this thing where he is absolutely able to convince you that he is going to shoot the wife. And then he counts to 10 and boom, gunshot. And we're like... And we don't actually see the gunshot on screen, so we spend most of the movie with this little piece at the beginning, which obviously comes after, wondering, did she die? Didn't she die? And then, normally in a film, you'd think, no, she didn't die, gunshot was off screen. Pfft, of course she didn't die. And I won't spoil whether she does or doesn't, but this scene really sets up the film because it gives every action sequence in it a driving force. Like, you know where they're going. They don't feel completely mindless and objectiveless. Like, they feel like they're going somewhere and we know where they're going, but we don't know how they're going to get there and we really want to know how they do it. How does Tom Cruise end up in such a vulnerable position with his wife? How does this actually occur? How does this happen? How does Philip Seymour Hoffman get the one up on this guy? And it really does make the film go in certain directions. Unlike in Mission Impossible 2, where Tom Cruise has this relationship with Tandy Newton's character that didn't really sell us, and they tried to make that an emotional plot point, and they really kind of couldn't. In this film, it's not done expertly, the relationship between them, but it's done well enough that when she is in danger, you don't want her to be in danger. Because in this film, Tom Cruise has actually left IMF. He's not an agent going out in the field anymore. He's actually trying to teach other agents to, you know, go out in the field themselves. And there is a very effective early action sequence involving one of his trainees that really sells us as well. She doesn't get much screen time, but we really want her to live through what she lives through. But again, I'm not going to spoil it. But because he's not in the field anymore, he feels like it would be safe for him to have a wife and a family. But when he gets dragged back into the field, that's when things get a little bit more complicated, and he gets sent out to look for this piece of tech called the rabbit's foot. What is the rabbit's foot? Well, it's a MacGuffin. You know, the film doesn't actually tell you at all what it's for. It never tells you in the whole film. It's just this thing that Tom Cruise needs to get. It's a little bit of a silly little motivator, but it works fine. As I've said, most of the action sequences in this film are great. There is a segment in the third half hour of this film, the third quarter, which feels a bit not out of place because they're doing the same action sequences, but I was kind of not invested there. I was like, you should really be doing something else here. But they work well enough, and the rest of them, besides that third quarter, all work really, really well. There's a segment on a bridge, which is great. There's a segment early on in the film, which I've already talked about, which works really well because J.J. Abrams makes some very ballsy decisions in establishing the vulnerability of the cast, which in turn convinces us that perhaps, maybe, his wife did die at the beginning of the film, and you wonder how do they get there again. And it just drives everything along so well and actually makes for some interesting scenes where the roles are reversed. For example, and I don't consider this a spoiler, there is a scene where Tom Cruise has gone to Philip Seymour Hoffman saying, where is the rabbit's foot? Tell me. And he's trying to intimidate him. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is not intimidated. And he's saying things like, you shouldn't be worried about that because now that you've done this to me, I'm going to kill your wife. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to make you really, really hurt. And normally in a film, someone in an interrogation chair says that, you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, one, is an incredible actor. He does such a good job of just absolutely selling you on it. But also, because of this scene at the beginning, you know that he actually is going to get it. And you want to just reach into the screen and say, Tom, listen to what he's saying. Because you know this guy has a reason to play it so cool. Because you know he can absolutely get his wife if he wants. And it adds this opening sequence, as I've said, it just gives this scene such a great little context, and this dramatic irony works so well in these sorts of moments. I'll also say that Mission Impossible 3 has the best plot of the three movies so far. that's not really saying much, because Mission Impossible 1, in my opinion, had a pretty bad plot. It's pretty convoluted. Could have been something if they'd directed it better, but it wasn't that great. Mission Impossible 2 had a better plot, but it was still really simple, and it was only better because I could keep up with it properly, and many others could as well. Still not a great plot. This one is a much better one, even though it's not that great. You know, as I've said, the rabbit's foot is merely a MacGuffin, and it's really driven by the idea of, oh, Philip Seymour Hoffman, you're a bad guy, we really need to get you, and there's not really much more thrown into it. What really makes the plot good is, as I've said, the ballsy decisions that J.J. Abrams makes to establish the vulnerability of the cast, which really makes you, in certain sequences, think, oh, they might kick it, they might kick the bucket there. We shouldn't be undersold because it's actually really difficult to do in action movies today. There's also a subplot where Ethan Hunt's like, I need to get my wife back, but the agency won't let me do it, so I can't really tell them. Oh, they're gonna be mad. And Lawrence Fishburne actually plays his superior, and he's the guy that Tom Cruise should be telling about what is going on, and he does a really good job, actually. Lawrence Fishburne is actually not that great an actor. Yeah, he was in The Matrix, so yeah, but Keanu Reeves was in The Matrix, guys. They aren't all good actors in that. But Lawrence Fishburne is really good. He's really sarcastic in the role. Kind of like, and this is gonna really not represent him well, but in Pitch Perfect 2, the guy that's played by that guy from Key and Peele, I forget his name, Michael Key, I think, is like him, but a little bit less comedic. But there is elements of that. He's just really sarcastic and really intimidating, and he actually does a really good job in the role as a sort of antagonist when, of course, Ethan Hunt goes a little bit rogue and he's like, what the hell is going on here? We need to get you back. So that's actually a really good point. So plot-wise, it's better than the first two movies. There is no action sequence in this film that measures up to the second action sequence in Mission Impossible 1. You know, the one in the white room that looks like it's been ripped straight out of the end of 2001. That isn't recreated here, ever. And I don't think there are many action sequences that can measure up to that because it was so well done, it was so tense, so suspenseful, and the silence is a level of restraint that is involved there that really isn't likely to get used very often in bombastic action films. So respect for Brian De Palma for doing that, and J.J. Abrams doesn't really recreate anything like that. The action sequences in this film also don't reach the silliness that some of the ones in Mission Impossible 2 do, and I do think these ones are better directed, even though Mission Impossible 2 I still think was a great time with its silly dumb fun. So the action is good. You could argue that it moves some of the characters a little bit more to the sidelines than they really should be, but it's suitable nonetheless. What really pushed this film over the edge for me in terms of quality and enjoyment was the climax. That was actually a really well done final half hour to this film. I really thought it worked so well. There is a twist thrown in which is admittedly very predictable, and it's kind of flag posted throughout the film, but for some reason I didn't see it coming, and that was admittedly me being pretty dumb because it is pretty obvious when it comes. But it's not the worst thing, and to be honest, it does work pretty well in the context of the film. I enjoyed it. The climax though, oh wow, it works so well. A lot of tension, a lot of suspense. It's a good climax. Let's just leave it there. So the film ends really well, and I have to give Mission Impossible 3 an 8 out of 10. I don't know how much of a popular opinion this is, but as far as I'm concerned, of the first three movies, Mission Impossible 3 just manages to cinch an 8, which makes it, you know, my favourite of the first three. Haven't seen Ghost Protocol yet. Hope that's even better. I've heard it is. Really hope it is. Please be. But what did you think of Mission Impossible 3? Do you agree with me and you think it's the best of the first three movies? Do you think it's the best of all the movies in general? Or do you disagree with me and you think it's meh, not quite as good as 1, better than 2? Or do you think it's the worst, it sucks, everything's bad? I don't know, whatever you think, comment below and just let me know what it is. Also, if you like this video, please like and favourite using the buttons below, you know what to click. And if you really like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe because there's always going to be more content coming. Always. So, but again, thank you so much for watching.